yesterday the derivative of the trigonometric function. So the differentiation of the trigonometric function is actually the mathematical process of finding the derivative of a trigonometric functions or its rate of change with respect to the variable. So we call that the basic trigonometric functions and the reciprocal are sine x, the reciprocal is cosecant x. We have the cosine x, the reciprocal there is secant x, and then tangent x, the reciprocal is cotangent x. So the derivative formula that tell us how to get the derivative of specific algebraic function when you have f of x is equal to x to the power of n, then the derivative to that is nx, that's n minus 1. So we are going to derive a formula for the derivative of the function just for the sine x only. Kasi we don't have the luxury of time to derive each of the derivative of the basic trigonometric function and its reciprocal. So we will be using the traditional way, yun f prime of x is equal to f x plus delta x minus f of x all over delta x as delta x approaches to 0 if the limit exists. Okay? So, i-derive lamang natin dito, yun lamang nasa unahan, which is yung sine x is equal to cosine x. Because I don't think you are interested in deriving the derivative of the basic and the inverse trigonometric function. Para lang ipakita natin na hindi natin minamagic yung derivative ng trigonometric function. Kaya pa yan dito. Kaya yan. So again, ang i-derive lamang natin dito ay ito lang. So we will start with f prime of x. That's f of Hamlet. Ito lang yung i-derive natin. So that's f prime of x is equal to the limit of f x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x as delta x approaches to 0. So we will be deriving here the derivative of sine x. Papakita natin na yan ay equal kay cosine x. Okay? Meron tayong parang hindi natin na i-lesson doon sa pre-calculus na lesson, yung sum identity ng sine function. Yung sum identity ng sine function, meron tayong sine alpha plus beta. If you're going to compute that, that will be sine alpha cosine beta plus cosine alpha sine beta. So we will be using this relationship. So we have now the limit of f and then our sine x. So this will be mali ang aking atake. Dapat pala dito ako nag-start. Limit of as delta x approaches to 0, we have sine x plus delta x minus sine x as delta x. Over delta x. The next thing is to distribute. We have the limit as delta x approaches to 0. We have there, para to solve, sine x, yung ating sine a plus b, ang gagawin natin dyan will be sine x cosine delta x, and then plus cosine x sine delta x minus sine x. Saan galing ito ating uh, sine x cosine x plus cosine x sine alpha x? Galing yan sa concept ng sum identity ng sine alpha and beta. Then we have, hindi nga siya magkasya, the limit of delta x approaches to 0. I think we can factor this because there is a common factor which is sine x. So this will be sine x, and then sine x cosine delta x will be cosine delta x ang matitira plus cosine x sine delta x and then minus 1. Negative sine x divided by sine x, that's negative 1, all over delta x as delta x approaches to 0. And then we could rephrase or rearrange the cosine delta x plus cosine x sine x minus 1. May makukuha tayong relationship dyan. Ang makuha nating relationship would be sine x, ang cosine delta x minus 1, pagsamahin natin. And then pagsamahin din natin ang cosine x sine delta x all over delta x. And you could also expand that dahil yan ay pwede nating isulat as the limit of sine x cosine delta x minus 1 over delta x. Ang kabila naman ay cosine x sine delta x over delta x as delta x approaches to 0. Natatandaan niyo yung lesson natin about trigonometric function. Yung lesson natin na kapag meron tayong limit of sine t over t as t approaches to 0, ang kanyang limit ay 1. Kapag meron tayong limit ni cosine t, cos t not cotangent, cosine t minus 1 over t as t approaches to 0, ang kanyang limit naman ay 0. So assuming that t is equal to delta x, you will be left here with sine x, which is 0, and then plus cosine x rather, which is equal to 1, which give you that the derivative of sine x is equal to cosine x. Kaya ito makukuha. And then if we are going to follow the same process, makukuha natin ang derivative ng cosine x ay sine x, same with tangent x second squared, and so on and so forth. As mentioned earlier, we are going to derive only the first one, which is the sine x, kasi we don't have the luxury of time deriving all the derivative of the trigonometric function. At alam po, hindi rin naman kayo interesado mag-derive. Okay? So, let's use this. I hope kahit pa paano, alam na natin ang derivative ng sine x ay cosine, cosine ay negative sine x, and so on and so forth. Here is the derivative naman of the inverse of the trigonometric function. So let's use the previous slide to find the derivative of the following trigonometric function. The first one is we have the given function is secant x plus 3 cosecant x. The derivative to that is ang derivative ng secant x is ano nga ba? Kabisado. Secant x is secant x tangent x. So we have secant x tangent x plus 3. Ang derivative naman ng cosecant x ay negative cosecant x cotangent x. Therefore, ang derivative ng secant x plus 3 cosecant x will be secant x tangent x minus 3 cosecant x cotangent x. And you can no longer simplify that kasi wala tayong relationship na makuha kahit na i-factor natin or kahit i-simplify pa natin. That's the derivative of second x plus 3 cosecant x. Okay? Sige, isa pang try. Kasi siyam yan. Here. Find the derivative of the function x tangent x. We'll still be using the product rule here for the derivative, the quotient rule, and as well as yung mga ibang properties, it's not properties, but law of the derivative. So since x tangent x is a product, it's x multiplied by a tangent x, then we will be using the product rule for the derivative. Yung product rule ng derivative is that x multiplied by the derivative of the tangent x plus the derivative of x multiplied by the tangent x. Basta multiplication, yung g at saka yung f natin, g times derivative of f plus f times derivative of g. So this will be x. The derivative of the tangent x is secant squared x. What's the derivative of x?
1.
1. So that's 1 multiplied by the tangent x. So we have now x multiplied by secant squared x. That's x secant squared x plus tangent. So that's the derivative of x tangent x. Question? Sige, we'll give you 3 minutes. Masyadong habang 3 minutes. 2 minutes to answer number 3. Find the derivative of x squared sine x. So it's a product. Go. Then type your answer kung ano yung kanyang derivative. Pakonti ng pakonti umagil sa Google Meet mo. Kahit sa mga yung sa nag-submit ng exam, parang nasa ano lang, wala pa sa 30. Sorry, previous. You mean the derivative ba ito? In previous slide? Bon, ito ba? Yung number 2. Okay. Isa-isa ko yung... Oh, nandito si Rosal dito. Ang daming wala. From Bon, the derivative is x squared cosine x plus 2x sine x. Let's wait for the others. Pagdating ng physics ng grade 12, natumbling talaga kayo kapag mahihilo or kahit yung basic na derivative ng function ay hindi mo siya makuha. From Carl, from Miko Isguera, x squared cosine x plus 2x sine x. Carl Peter, x squared cosine x plus 2 sine x. Very good. I think pare-parehas ng sagot. Bon, Miko Isguera, we have Carl Peter and Ken Luis Icardo. So here, it's a product. So the derivative of that will be, that's x squared multiplied by the derivative of sine x plus the derivative of x squared multiplied by the sine x. So we have here x squared, the derivative of sine x is cosine x, and then the derivative of x squared is 2x multiplied by something. In other words, the derivative here is x squared cosine x plus 2x sine x. Let's try number 4. We'll give you 5 minutes kung kakayanin siya. It's okay kung di mo makuha, pero in-encourage ko kayo na subukan. So it's that is division. Recall natin kung paano tayo na kukuha ng division na derivative. Here we go. From Cedric, cosine x minus 2 over 1 minus 2 cosine x squared. Okay. from Nico, negative cosine x squared plus sine squared over 1 minus cosine squared. Cosine x from 1 minus 2 cosine squared. Okay, cosine. May nakita kong dalawang tama. Pero sa mga nagsasagot pa, you can continue your solution. Natin kung sino ang tama doon sa mga nag-submit. So we have here, um, its derivative is the denominator, which is 1 minus 2 cosine x, multiplied by the derivative of the numerator, which is sine x, minus yung derivative ni denominator, cosine x times the numerator all over denominator squared. So we have now 1 minus 2 cosine x. Ang derivative ni sine x ay cosine x. Ang derivative ni 1 minus cosine x ay, ang 1 dyan ay 0 niya. So negative 2. Ang cosine ay negative sine x. And then multiplied by sine x over 1 minus 2 cosine, nakalimutan ko yung x, cosine x squared. So let's simplify this. 1 minus 2 cosine x multiplied by cosine x, i-distribute mo lang. 1 times cosine x, that's cosine x. Minus 2 cosine squared x. Walang squared ha. Ang cosine yung naka-squared. Minus, ito ay magiging positive 2 sine x times sine x over 1 minus 2 cosine x quantity squared. Tapos niyan, meron kang cosine x minus 2 cosine x, ay cosine squared x minus, pag sinimplify natin ng 2 sine x, magiging negative 2 sine squared x over 1 minus 2 cosine x quantity squared. Tapos mula dyan, marami na nag-stop, pero meron ka pang pwedeng ma-simplify dyan, which is, ay, sorry, na-deny ko si Dugay. Wait lang, pindot ko yung denied. Pwede natin i-factor yung negative cosine squared minus negative minus 2 sine squared x. Meron siyang common which is minus 2. So pag sinimplify natin, that's cosine squared x minus sine squared x over 1 plus 2 cosine x squared. Ano ang naaalala nyo kay cosine squared x minus sine squared x? Ito, ano naaalala nito? Yan. Cosine squared x minus sine squared. Equivalent yan saan? The trigonometric function. Equivalent siya sa ano? 1, that's correct, Bon. Minus 2 times 1 over 1 plus 2 cosine x squared. Kaya ang matitira mo lang dyan ay cosine x minus 2 over 1 plus 2 cosine x quantities. Alam ko may nakakuha kanina na tatlo na yata. Pinakauna nakakuha, we have um, Cedric Salonga, cosine x minus 2. Alam ko nakuha din ito ni Ariel Pidayo, cosine x minus 2. And then, si Ken Lewis, naging negative 2 minus cosine x. Pwede ba? Hindi siya pwede, ipinactor siya eh. Sir, bakit naging plus po yung denominator? Oo nga ba? Wait lang. Bakit nga ba naging plus? Minus. Problema, hindi ko siya mabura. Minus to ha. It's cosine x minus 2. Na negative nagkamali. Over 1 minus 2 cosine x squared. Siya pwedeng burahin kasi pag binura ko, uulitin ko lahat ng solution ko. Okay? Thank you for that, Nico. Question? Siguro hindi nyo lang na-anticipate na yung cosine squared x minus sine squared x is equal to 1. Akala natin wala tayong makukuha dito sa part na to. Pero meron pa tayong makukuha dyan na 1. Yung cosine squared x at saka sine squared x. Okay? Another one. I'll give you, madali to. Okay. 3 minutes. Tangent x, secant x. Product, ha? Have you answered? You are done. From Bon, tangent x, secant x. Ba't ang dami tangent? Secant cube. Okay. Tangent secant plus tangent squared secant. I-factor nyo na para hindi masyadong madami. Like for example, yung sagot mo, Miko and Bon, meron siyang common factor which is second. Tangent squared seconds. 1 minute. Okay. Sige, let's see. Um, the derivative to that is, since that is a product, so we'll be using the product rule. Tangent x multiplied by the derivative of the second x plus the derivative of tangent x multiplied by second x. So this is tangent x. The derivative of second x is second x tangent x. The derivative of tangent x is second squared x multiplied by second squared. So this will be tangent x times second x tangent x, that will be second x tangent squared x plus second cube x. Kaya lang since meron pa silang common factor, that will be second x, ito ay magiging tangent squared x plus second squared x. Sino ang nakakuha? Bakit may 4x na? Si Carl. Second x tangent squared x plus second squared x. Miko got it correctly. Hindi na factor, Mark Lewis. Bon. Bakit may tangent x ka pang natira dyan, Bon? Tangent squared tangent x. Okay? Mas madali. Ito. Number 6. Parang polynomial ang dating niya. 4 second x minus 2 cos second x. From 1 4 secant x tangent x plus 2 cotangent cosecant x. Bakit nagkaroon ng cotangent? Ah, okay. Same pala. From Jonas, 4 secant x tangent x. Feeling ko itong pinakamadali sa lahat na binigay ko. Kasi, para siyang polynomial. So, we have now, the derivative of secant x is secant x tangent x. Tapos, ang derivative naman ni cosecant x ay negative cosecant x cotangent x. Simplify mo lang. So, this is for secant x tangent x. Negative 2 and the negative yung cosecant. That's positive cosecant x cotangent x. And we are going to accept also yung sagot nyo na for secant x tangent x, huwag kalimutan yung x, plus 2 cotangent x cosecant x. Same lang po yun. Like yung sagot ni Jonas and ni, sino pa ba yung naunang cotangent? Ken. Same lang din po yun. Mark Lewis also got it correctly. Okay. Next, yung inyong kahinaan na division. Wala 5 minutes for this. From Bon, cosine x minus cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Meron ka pang, pwede pang masimplify Bon yan. Kasi may cosine squared x ka, may sine squared x ka. So makakapag-produce ka pa dyan ng 1. Saan napunta yung 1? Negative cosine x. One minus Pamiko is Guerra cosine squared plus sine squared x 1 cosine x minus 1 and multiply pa rin cosine x. Yung may mga sagot na cosine x minus 1 over 1 minus cosine x quantity squared, masisimplify pa yan. 1 over 1 minus cosine x. 1, pwede ba ito? 1 Sige, check natin. So, we have now, ito ay quotient, 1 over 1 minus cosine x, 1 over 1 minus cosine x. Check natin kung sagot ni Joshua and Ariel. So, we have 1 minus cosine x, derivative of sine x multiplied by, minus the numerator, sine x, multiplied by the derivative of the denominator, which is 1 minus cosine x, over the denominator squared. So 1 minus cosine, that's 1 minus cosine x, derivative of sine x ay cosine x minus sine x, derivative of 1 minus cosine ay magiging sine na siya. Tama kasi ang derivative ni cosine pala ay negative sign, i-negative pa yung cosine kaya siya maging positive sign. Derivative of 1 is 0. So over 1 minus cosine x quantity squared. Distribute natin, this will be 1 times cosine x, that's cosine x, cosine x times cosine x, that's negative cosine squared x, minus sine x, sine squared x rather, over 1 minus cosine x quantity squared. Ito ay pwede pa natin siyang mas-simplify. Cosine x minus cosine squared x minus sine squared x over 1 minus cosine x squared. I-factor natin para ma-produce ko yung cosine squared plus sine squared kasi alam natin na 1. So this is minus. So ito ay magiging cosine squared x plus sine squared x over, lumutan ko yung x, 1 minus cosine x. Yung cosine squared x plus sine squared x, galing yan kay negative cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Pinactor ko lang yung negative 1. Kaya ito yung negative 1 natin. So that will be cosine minus 1. Kasi yung cosine squared x plus sine squared x, that's 1. Negative yung labas, so maging negative 1. Over 1 minus cosine x quantity squared. Pwede ko siyang ma-factor as gagawin ko, ilalabas ko yung negative neto. So magiging, ito ay magiging negative cosine x plus 1. Yung numerator, pinactor ko, nilabas ko yung negative 1 over 1 minus cosine x quantity squared. Pwede kong matanggal ang isang cosine, 1 minus cosine x dito. Tama, pwede. So ang matitira ko dyan ay negative 1 over 1 minus cosine x. Pero tinatanggap natin yung 1 over, walang negative. Hindi yun negative. Tatanggapin natin yung 1 over, negative 1 over, okay, gets ko na. Check ko yung sagot nyo ha. Yung may nagsagot ng 1 over, kasi negative 1 to, pinactor mo yung negative sa labas, so magiging cosine x plus 1. So, pwede ang 1 over cosine x plus 1. Wala man sagot. Kailangan may negative. May nakakuha ng sagot si Joshua Bumanglang. It's negative 1 over 1 minus cosine x. Itong kay Bon ay tama din, negative 1 over 1 minus cosine x. Pwede ang positive 1, pero dapat cosine x plus 1 ang sagot. Kung gusto niyo i-factor ito. So, nagkamali ng si King, ano? Alam ko si Ariel din. So, may nakakuha ng dalawa, tama. Bon and Joshua Bumanglan. Question? Let's have the last two, number 8. So, tangent y over 1 minus sine y. Do not be amazed with the d over dy kasi ang kinukuha lang dyan ay derivative lang. It's other way of writing the derivative instead of writing y prime. Ay, bakit nawala yung 1? Sorry. May tanong. Bakit nawala yung 1? Asaan? Ito ba? 1 minus cosine. Sa baba ba to? Miko? Yung taas. Tinanggal natin. Kasi di ba pwedeng matanggal dito yung cosine x at saka yung negative cosine x plus 1 saka 1 minus cosine x. Ito yung 1. Tama ba? Hindi naman siya nawala. Shopee maingay. Unang part. Sa unang part, sir. Dito, i-unmute mo yung sarili mo para magkaintindihan tayo. Saan banda? Basahin mo. Left side. Basahin mo nga. Can you unmute?
Sa una, sir.
Basahin
sa taas, yung ano po, minus. Yung ano, sir, sa pangalawang part.
Basahin mo. Dito ba? Yung cosine x minus 1. Tinutukoy mo?
Sin x times sin x po.
Sin x. Dito. Ito.
Opo.
Tama ba ito?
Opo.
Ang derivative kasi ni 1 ay 0. Di ba may dx? Ang derivative ni 1 ay 0. So, nawala na talaga siya. Okay? Number 8. Go. Ang daming tahimik hindi nagsasabit ng sagot. Nahihirapan pa din. Bakit pass? Mahaba siya, pero wala ka namang makukombine. So, yun na yung sagot niya. Cedric, negative cosecant squared plus cot x cos x. Bakit nag-x? Di ba y? Over 1 minus sine x. Bon, uh, negative cosecant squared plus sine y cosecant squared sine k plus cotangent cosine over 1 minus sine. Bahala na. From Mike Lewis, 1 minus sine y cosecant squared y. Okay? Ah, sagutin ko lang ito. From Card Peter, negative cosecant squared y minus sine. I-check natin. Mahaba yung sagot niya pero yun, wala lang tayong masisimplify doon. This will be, ang derivative neto ay, hindi siya equal. It's 1 minus sine y, derivative ni numerator, which is cotangent y, minus cotangent y, derivative ni denominator na 1 minus sine y over 1 minus sine y squared. So, 1 minus sine y, derivative ni cotangent y ay negative cosecant squared y minus cotangent y, derivative ni 1 minus sine y. Ang 1 ay 0, ang negative sign ay negative cosine. Tama ba ako? Yeah, negative cosine y over 1 minus sine y squared. Distribute natin, 1 times negative cosecant squared, that's negative cosecant squared y, plus negative sine y plus, times negative cosecant squared y, that's positive cosecant squared y sine y. And then yung kabila, negative tapos negative, magiging positive cotangent y cosine y over 1 minus sine y. Wala na tayong masimplify dyan, kundi iyan ang sagot niya. Marami naman nakakuha ng sagot, kahit na mahaba. Sa wakas, nakuha ni Bon. I think Miko Isguera got it correctly. Squared y, sine y, cosecant y, plus. Okay. Card Peter, negative. Minus lang, ano. Mike Luis, na mali. Dalawa lang. Miko and Bon. Mahaba lang siya. Pero minsan, akala mo mahaba siya, kakahanap mo ng trigonometric identity, wala ka talagang mahanap siya. Akala ko din nung una yung sunog ko yan, may makukuha akong trigonometric identity. Hindi ko pa na-multiply. Okay, let's have the last example. Tangent to y plus 1 over tangent to y minus 1. Minus 1 rather. Negative second squared y over tangent y minus 1 from Bon. Ibig sabihin, mali o tama? Ah, ang kay Miko ay positive. Second squared y over tangent y minus 1. Negative 2 second squared y over tangent squared. Sa mga hindi nagsasabit ng sagot, ina-anticipate ko na nagtatry pa din kayo kahit na nahihiya kayong mag-submit. Kasi mahirap yun pag hindi mo siya sinubukang i-solve talaga. Remember, ang math at saka science, it's a subject na skills talaga ang um, para maintindihan mo talaga, kailangan mo siya mag-practice. We'll wait, siguro mga 2 minutes pa. 5:23 pa yan. Ay, tama. 1 minute. Sana may mag-submit pa. Dalawa pala rin sasubmit eh. Pinalitan pala ni Miko. Negative 2 second squared y tangent y minus 1. Mark Louise, negative 2 second squared y tangent y minus 1. Okay, it's 5:25. Let's solve. So we have their denominator, like Carl Peter, negative 2 tangent 1. Okay. Tangent y minus 1 times the derivative of the numerator, tangent y plus 1, minus the numerator, tangent y plus 1, tapos derivative ni denominator, tangent y minus 1 over tangent y minus 1 quantity squared. So tangent y minus 1, derivative ni tangent y plus 1 ay, ang derivative ni tangent ay secant squared. Y, ang derivative ni 1 ay 0, minus tangent y plus 1, derivative ni tangent y ay secant squared y, 0 naman yung negative 1. So this will be tangent y minus 1 quantity squared. So this will be, distribute natin, tangent y times secant squared y, that is tangent y secant squared y minus secant squared y. Tapos yung kabila, tangent y times secant squared y. May negative ka sa labas, kaya siya magiging negative tangent y secant squared y. Tapos minus secant squared y over tangent y minus 1 squared. Tapos ito ay masisiro mo. Negative secant squared y minus secant squared y, that's negative 2 secant squared y over tangent y minus 1 quantity squared. Kami nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Ariel, Carl Peter, Mark Luis. We also have Miko Esguerra and Bon Luis. Bon Josh. Okay? I hope, sabi ko nga kanina, hindi ko nahihiya magsabit ng sagot kasi baka mali ang nakuha, okay lang. Kung nagkakamali, pero at least kung hindi mo naintindihan lesson na to, i-send ko yung mama yung PDF, takpan mo yung sagot, ulitin mo yung pagsusolve. Pag feeling makukuha mo na yung sagot dito, na hindi mo siya tinitingnan, ibig sabihin, kaya mo nang sagutan siya. This will be your activity number 3 to be submitted sa LMS. Right now, kasi naka-down pa yung LMS. As soon as ma-okay yung LMS, we'll send it sa LMS. Screenshot muna kasi. Mamaya ko pag okay, that's all for today. Thank you for joining the class and I hope, sir, ilang lesson na lang. 3 pa. Try kong subukan o yung application niya. Kasi para pagdating sa physics, hindi kayo mahirapan. Pero kung hindi kaya, doon tayo kayo sa physics. 3 lesson pa ang kailangan ko ituro. Lain mo yun. Tapos meron ako remedial class kasi natatakot ako sa mababagsak. That's all for today. You may leave ano ko pala? Baka attendance. Attendance.